It is the Fix California Hour on the John Phillips Show. Johnny's on vacation. It's Randy here flying solo. The phone number to join us is 800-222-5222, 1-800-222-5222. You can email us at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com and search for the John Phillips Show wherever you get your podcasts. Our next guest is the editorial director and CEO of The Voice of San Francisco, which you can follow on social media at the VOSF and follow her on Twitter at Susan D. Reynolds. Susan Dyer Reynolds, welcome back to the John Phillips Show.
Hey, Randy. Nice to be back.
Susan, let's go ahead and pick up with what we've been talking about the last hour, a story that you've been covering extensively. A 91-time, 30-year felon that we're trying to see is if he's eligible for diversion for the manslaughter killing of two women.
Correct. That's Hanako Abe and Elizabeth Platt were mowed down by a 35-year felon named Troy McAllister while he was out on parole, thanks to then DA Chesa Boudin. I've been covering it from the beginning, mostly from Hanako's mother's point of view. And in fact, I won a California Journalism Award this year for my in-depth coverage of the Hanako Abe case.
So what can you tell us about the what brought us here from a case that, you know, this incident happened almost over 5 years ago?
Yes. It's ironic because when Boudin decided to give him parole, a plea deal, the reasoning behind it that he had gotten his GED while in jail. He had been sitting in jail then for 5 years on a 2015 burglary charge. That charge, the public defender then was Jeff Adachi, who mentored most of the people, including Manu Raju, who's the public defender now. Of course, was asking for diversion. He wanted him to go to the Salvation Army, just like they're trying to do now. And you'll be familiar with who our DA was at the time. It was George Gascon, not known for being a conservative guy. And he said, absolutely not. This guy has 3 strikes. He has, dozens and dozens and dozens of felonies, misdemeanors. They're increasing in violence. At the time, he had 73 felonies and 34 misdemeanors in San Francisco alone. Now, when you add up all the crimes he committed when Boudin let him out, plus the 2 deaths, plus the other counties he was arrested in, it's well over 100 felonies in the Bay Area. And the decision on the judge's part at that time was that he would stay in jail and face trial because he was actually facing, according to Gascon, 35 to life. And that is what Gascon thought he should serve. He said he's had his chances and he's elevating, his game to the point where he's getting increasingly violent and he's a danger to the public. So 5 years later, he goes to L.A. to be your DA. We know how that worked out. Chesa Boudin, by some miracle, ekes out a win in San Francisco, even though I warned people at the Marina Times not to put him in office, but they did. And he decides that for some reason, this guy becomes one of his first things he wants to do, and he lets him out. During the course of the next few months, this guy committed he was arrested 5 additional times, numerous felonies for each of these, all involving burglaries, car break-ins, stealing cars, stealing phones, breaking into cars. The final one was something that no one knew other than me because I got a call from someone who worked at the UCSF police force, which is separate from SFPD. And he told me that when he came upon Troy breaking into a car, wearing an ankle monitor, and with a gunshot wound, he asked him where the wound came from. He said, I got shot last week in a fight. He was on parole, so of course, this was a guy this person I know, who looked up his record and he put a note in that case file saying, DA Boudin, this man is dangerous. He has 73 felonies and 34 misdemeanors in San Francisco alone. But once again, just like the other 4 previous arrests that happened while he was on a plea deal, Boudin did not file any new charges. What he claims he did is he sent it to the California Parole Board. Well, that's not going to happen, right? You've got to take care of things at home. So Boudin and that, when I wrote that story and talked about, and I got his record, and it was 253 pages long. And I'd read every court transcript, and he absolutely had zero remorse. All he wanted to do was get out, get credit for everything he'd done. It's just a disaster, this guy. And his family was middle class. I don't want to hear this. He grew up poor, and he was a poor kid with no father. His father died when he was young, but he had an uncle ever present in his life. His mother and his uncle both worked for the city of San Francisco. He went to private school, and his brother has worked for multiple television stations and Google and went to college and got a degree. So I don't want to hear he didn't have any chances, because this guy had all the chances in the world. Even his parents think he belongs in jail, or his dad or his mother and his uncle. And so now here we are 5 years later, and the public defender is once again trying to get him released on diversion.
You know, it's wild. I'm sure there's plenty of people listening that didn't even know that you could file for some kind of mental health diversion with a case like this when we're talking about the manslaughter killing of two women on top of all the other charges.
Well, what I argue in my latest article is they really shouldn't be considering it. It's the only reason they're considering it is that Judge Michael Begert, who is in charge of Care Court and the drug and mental health courts, created those courts, and he oversees them. So he very much is all about diverting as many people as possible. And the public defender is going to ride with it because their job is to get this guy off at any cost. It doesn't matter to them whether he goes out and kills someone the next day. It doesn't even seem to matter to them that he killed two women and that their families have been waiting over 5 years for justice. And now all of a sudden they flip the switch and say, hey, let's get him into diversion. Technically, he is not eligible because Vehicle Code Section 23640 makes him ineligible. Because any person, it says that any case where a person is charged with a violation prior to acquittal or conviction, the court shall neither suspend nor stay the proceedings for allowing the accused to attend or participate in education, training, or treatment programs, including those for alcohol or mental health. That's what the DA is going to argue. You add on top of that this DUI also happened in the commission of a crime, because this is just, you can't make this stuff up. He was fleeing the police after committing a burglary in a stolen car while he was high on meth, and the car had been stolen the night before from a woman he met on a dating app in Daly City. He asked her to run in and grab them some burgers at Nations, and while she was in there, she came back, he pulled a gun and stole her car. So that's the car he was in, fleeing from another burglary in San Francisco, and that's how he came upon that intersection on New Year's Eve, about 4:30 in the afternoon, 2020, and mowed down two women and killed them. So he is not in any way, shape, or form somebody who's eligible for diversion, but they're going to push this as far as they can. They had hoped, I think, that this hearing was going to be quiet, but Mrs. Abe reached out to me with an email she received from the DA's office telling her that this was going to be happening. I wrote a story. It went viral. They're all kind, there was a protest at the courthouse, and next thing you know, they delay it until October 28th. So now they've got to regroup probably and try to think how they're going to, play this, because it's an ugly look, frankly.
We're speaking to Susan Dyer Reynolds, the editorial director and CEO of The Voice of San Francisco. I got to imagine now that people are paying attention to this story and seeing this, a lot more attention is going to be paid to this judge, Michael Begert, and the decisions that he's made over the years, to the dismay of someone like Brooke Jenkins that have been trying to get, for instance, drug dealers put away in San Francisco, and we just can't do it.
That's right. And the fact about it is that the San Francisco voters had a chance to get rid of him last year. He had a very worthy competitor, which rarely happens, as you know, in judges' races. People don't want to run against incumbents because they have a war chest that's compiled from all of the judges that pay into it. And anytime someone runs against them, they just go out and destroy the person. So in this case, there was a brave person came forward to run against him, and San Francisco's, the Chronicle endorsed him to keep him in office. The media was, let's keep him, he's great. And next thing you know, except me, of course, and then the next thing you know, he keeps his job. So that's number one. Number two is that it's almost impossible to. I understand that diversion is something that was a state law, that, we have our wonderful people like Scott Wiener who love to water down and weaken any laws that hold criminals accountable. But the fact is diversion was never meant for violent felons. It was never meant for felons. And I actually, on my Substack, Gotham by the Bay, I wrote a in-depth, data-driven, long research piece on Boudin and how he was using diversion. And it turns out he was putting a lot of violent felons into diversion, drug dealers instead of drug users. And so I asked for all of the diversion cases. They kept pushing me away, wouldn't give them to me. So we got Carl Olson, one of the greatest First Amendment attorneys out there, to write a letter saying that he would sue them, and they gave them to us. And now we know why he didn't want us to have them. They hadn't followed up on a single case. So not only were they letting violent criminals go into these attempted murderers, gang members, Honduran drug dealers, not only were they putting those people all into diversion where, at the care court, for example, a dealer was sitting next to his client, but they didn't track any of them. So they're out there somewhere, but not in jail.
And, of course, we have no actual data that they love to say that shows that these programs are successful. We're speaking with Susan Dyer Reynolds. She's the executive director and CEO of The Voice of San Francisco. You can also get her at susanreynolds.substack.com to check out that Substack. Susan, let's talk about something else that's horrifying that happened in San Francisco last week, and that was a urban alchemy, quote-unquote, practitioner getting murdered in front of a San Francisco library for asking somebody to stop doing drugs. Are we at the point where we can finally admit that it's not a great idea to have unqualified, unarmed people doing the job of police?
I've said that from the start. I mean, and I will say it here, Lena Miller is city family. She was friends with one of the people I helped put in jail, Department of Public Works Director Mohammed Nuru. She calls him Papa Mo. And he was one of her mentors. She's in this for the money. And she likes to talk all the time about, these guys that go out here and do this work, they were incarcerated, they work so hard, but they make $17 an hour and they have very few options. She's using them. It's disgusting. I understand that these guys need jobs, but a guy like this who from everyone I've talked to was dedicated, devoted, hardworking, he wanted to stay straight, stay clean. There has to be other options. People need to step up and say, look, I'll hire this guy, because you can't put a guy who's had a history like his. First of all, it's got to be traumatic for him to put him right back into the life that he led. And secondly, he's not trained. He shouldn't be. Some of them do, I hear, carry weapons, but they aren't supposed to. And, he just had no chance. And this is a drug tourist. He comes from Massachusetts. And of course, we don't have his mugshot because we don't have mugshots in San Francisco, which Daniel Lurie and interim chief Yep will not hear the end of from me, because it was instilled by, our very left-wing police chief Scott, who thought they were racist in 2020, which is a joke because this guy, by the way, is a white dude. And he just looked up and basically said, F urban alchemy, and shot him. And that was it.
It's just unbelievable. Meanwhile, urban alchemy has a foothold in places like San Francisco, Oakland, Culver City, Los Angeles, Austin. Do we know how many, just in San Francisco, how much dollars we're talking about in contracts this one organization has for the shelters that they run, or this street walking program where people are apparently paid $8 to check on someone, which could include passing out a cigarette? How much money is San Francisco spending on urban alchemy?
Millions and millions, and they just re-upped their contract, I believe, another $30 million. And there's, I'm not saying there aren't some of them that do good work, but they have all kinds of problems, and they're overspending. They still got their contract extension, despite the fact that they're still getting favorable status from our wayward Department of Homelessness and Supportive Housing, which really should just be crumpled up and thrown away. They're terrible. But they were put on notice and relegated to a Tier 2 status for city contractors because they got a warning letter saying that they were on watch list for serious fiscal and programmatic concerns, inadequate and non-compliant tracking of employee hours, and all kinds of other stuff. And they're a huge part of the homeless industrial complex. They are receiving upwards of $50 million right now across multiple contracts. And that includes, by the way, running homeless housing, which what do they know about running homeless? It's bad enough that they're out there pretending to be cops, but they're also running, for example, 711 Post Street. They're getting $23 million to run that. And HSH, which is the homeless department, they want to increase it to $27.6 million. And Urban Alchemy is crying poor. Meanwhile, they're having problems with overspending. So, their employees, they gave pay bumps not to the guys on the street, but, Lena Miller's cronies are getting pay raises to the tune of $800,000, which were not authorized. And here we are still trying to get them another, $50 million or extension. I mean, they just keeping the money. And it's just, when Daniel Lurie got into office, he said he was going to hold the nonprofits accountable. I laughed because at Tipping Point, he never held any of them accountable, and he still doesn't. He still has all kinds of wayward nonprofits that his nonprofit Tipping Point funds that have been, called up on fraud charges, tons of issues with these nonprofits, and he's still letting them be part of his Tipping Point. So why wouldn't he continue them in the city? But we have like Home Rise, for example, is under investigation. They still work for Tipping Point. Episcopal Community Services has more deaths than any other service provider in their, quote, housing first buildings. Yet they run Daniel Lurie's, crown jewel that he bragged about all through his, when he was in the election, at 855 Bryant Street, where there's been deaths and shootings and dogfighting and drugs. I mean, so it doesn't give me a lot of faith that he's the guy that's going to clean up the nonprofit grift. And it doesn't give me a lot of faith that he's going to clean up the situation with Urban Alchemy, who, frankly, every single one of them should be taken off the street. They're being put in danger every day while Lena Miller sits in her fur coat in her office.
I mean, you're totally right. It's not safe for the people that we're putting in to do this job, on top of all the other grift that's been going on with Urban Alchemy and so many other nonprofits. Susan Dyer Reynolds, the editorial director and CEO of The Voice of San Francisco. You can get her on Twitter at Susan D. Reynolds, and you can get her Substack, susanreynolds.substack.com. Susan Dyer Reynolds, thank you so much for joining us today on The John Phillips Show.
Absolutely. Always a pleasure.
Thank you. It's the Fix California Hour. Johnny is on vacation. It's Randy Wang here. The phone number is 800-222-5222, 1-800-222-5222. Want to thank again Susan Dyer Reynolds for joining us, which if you don't follow her on Twitter, you've got to. That is a great source for Bay Area news. She is plugged into what's going on in San Francisco, San Jose, and Oakland. So give her a follow on Twitter at Susan D. Reynolds. Now, do I have something nice for you, for our Southern California listeners? Look at this. 790 KABC welcomes John Waite at the Canyon at the Oxnard Performing Arts Center on October 18th. Tickets are on sale now at AXS.com. But right now, caller number 9 at 1-888-790-5222 gets a pair of tickets to the show. Tickets furnished by the Canyon, where music meets the soul. John Waite at the Oxnard Performing Arts Center, October 18th. Good luck dialing. The phone number to join us is 800-222-5222, 1-800-222-5222. You can email us at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com and search for The John Phillips Show wherever you get your podcasts. By the way, if 3 hours of me isn't enough, if you're in Southern California, you can hear the local show that I do for 790 KABC, The News Blitz with Randy Wang, every day from 5 to 6. And if you're in the Bay Area and you want to catch that, get the KABC app or search for the KABC News Blitz and, enjoy that. Or listen to something else. You do whatever you want to do on your time, as long as you spend 3 hours a day here. or 2 hours. You do whatever you want. This was supposed to be the year the California legislature tackled California's biggest problem, affordability. California has a lot of problems, but if you ask most of the people running for governor, if you ask most of the people currently in office, even Gavin Newsom himself, he'll say it's California's original sin. It's too damn expensive to live here. It's too expensive to buy things here. It's really, really, really expensive. One of the things that makes it so expensive is the gasoline that you have to put in your car. And what do you know? Thanks to another refinery fire in Southern California this week, gas prices looking to go up 13 cents in the next week or so. But still, on average, gasoline is $1.50 to $2 higher here than the rest of the country. And there's always that big sticker shock. I'm sure you notice it. I spend a lot of time in New Mexico and Texas. And outside of the incredible food that both of those states offer, the thing that you always remember is the first time you see a gas station outside of California. I think the first one that I will see when I'm in Santa Fe next week is there's an Allsups on Cerrillos Road, and the gas is going to be $2.79. But don't you worry. Our fearless leaders here in the state of California have found a way to make gasoline more affordable. But there's a big catch. For more, here is CBS 8 in San Diego.
We start tonight with a little relief at the pump. Drivers here in California will soon have a new choice that could help lower gas prices.
A new choice? Tell me more.
Good evening. I'm Marcella Lee.
I'm Carlo Cicchetto. Governor Gavin Newsom just signed a law that allows gas stations to sell a cheaper, cleaner blend of gasoline, and it couldn't come any sooner. Right now, San Diego drivers are paying about 14 cents more than this time last year, about $1.60 more per gallon than the national average.
CBS 8's Esmeralda Perez is live with what this change means for drivers and how soon you could see the savings. Esmeralda?
What is this new, cheaper gasoline? I gots to know.
Well, that's right. And the law is already in effect. Now it's just a matter of time before gas stations begin offering E15 fuel to its customers as an option. But before.
So wait, there's going to be regular unleaded, plus, super plus, diesel, and E15. What is E15?
Begin offering E15 fuel to its customers as an option. But before you begin fueling up, there are some things that you should keep in mind.
Gavin Newsom signed Assembly Bill 30, allowing gas stations to sell E15, a blend that contains 15% ethanol.
Okay, so we're selling corn oil. All righty. Is it still work for the engine? Let's find out.
The Air Resources Board is still studying whether the new mix meets California's clean air standards, but sales are now legal. Today I spoke with local Assembly member David Alvarez, who authored this bill.
This is an opportunity to do two things that we want to do in California. Keep our environment clean, not polluting anymore. That's what this does. And not increase the price, actually quite the opposite, get decrease in the cost of gasoline.
Gas stations can be...
The corn's cheaper than the oil, you say?
Decrease in the cost of gasoline.
Gas stations can begin offering E15 as supply becomes available. Alvarez notes competition will likely drive them to act quickly.
They'll be able to offer that cheaper, cleaner fuel to customers, and I assume that they will try.
How much is it going to cost to add a fourth button to all the pumps?
To customers, and I assume that they will try to do that as quickly as possible because, everybody's looking for cheap gas all the time. And so if you're...
Which... I'm no longer a gas car driver. I've had an electric car for the past few years. It works for me because I charge it at home. Charging on the road is a nightmare. I tried it once in Santa Barbara wine country. I'm never doing that again. But I charge it at home. It's my commuter car. For road trips, my wife has a hybrid. We're good to go. So I don't really have to go to the gas station anymore, which is one of the best things about owning an electric car. No longer being a sitting duck while people come up and harass you and having to sit there and wait and wait.
No, everybody's looking for cheap gas all the time.
But I got to say, even when I was a gas car driver, I never understood the impulse of driving miles out of the way to go to the one guy who's got gas 5 cents cheaper than everybody else. feel like the fuel that you're burning just to get there was a waste.
Everybody's looking for cheap gas all the time. And so if you're someone who sells the gas, you probably want to offer the cheaper gas so that you can be, have a competitive advantage over your other competitors.
Well, this all sounds great so far. So when's the other shoe going to drop on this story?
According to the U.S. Department of Energy, E15 is approved for flexible fuel vehicles in most cars built since 2001. But
what is flex fuel? Now, I'm not a car guy. I'm not the motor man. I've never heard of a flex fuel vehicle. There used to be the Ford Flex, but I think that was just a model. How many people know if they have a flex fuel vehicle?
But not every fuel system is safe. I spoke with Paul McGlasson, a technician at Wolf's Foreign Car Service in Kearney Mesa.
If your car says flex fuel, it's definitely in the safe zone, but any other car could be at risk.
Okay, so let me just get this straight. We have a new option for fuel that is going to be available at gas stations. It's called E15, but it only works on certain kinds of cars. Hybrids, I think all the gasoline works in all the hybrids. It just charges the battery. It's a great technology. And those plug-in hybrids, I love those. My mother-in-law has the Volvo plug-in hybrid. It's got like 40 miles on a charge. And then when you need it for a road trip, it's got like a 400-mile battery, a 400-mile tank. But you're going to have people going to the pump and seeing a cheap option for gas and not knowing that gas isn't compatible with their car. This sounds like there's going to be some issues.
The Department of Energy also warns that some vehicles should avoid E15, including all motorcycles, heavy-duty engines like school buses and delivery trucks, off-road vehicles like boats and snowmobiles, and small equipment engines like chainsaws and lawnmowers.
You can't fill your chainsaw with this. Well, what exactly are the serial killers supposed to do?
And small equipment engines like chainsaws and lawnmowers.
Most cars, alcohol affects the fuel system.
I feel like there's going to need to be a massive public education campaign on this new fuel that Gavin Newsom has signed into being able to be sold at gas stations will destroy your engine unless it's a very specific kind of one.
Alcohol affects the fuel system in a bad way, unless it was...
Wait, so ethanol is alcohol? Can you drink it?
Alcohol affects the fuel system in a bad way, unless it was specifically designed to run on alcohol, like a flex fuel car. So the more alcohol you get, the more risk there is of damaging fuel components, fuel pump, fuel lines, injectors.
So as gas stations begin offering E15 fuel to their pumps, make sure that you check and you make sure that your vehicle is in the safe zone. Carlo Marcello, back to you.
So just as a warning, before you see that this kind of gas is 10 cents cheaper than the other kind of gas, make sure that your car is compatible with it or you're going to have to call AAA. 800-222-5222 is the telephone number. Let's go to Eric in San Pedro. Eric, hello.
How you doing, guys? Hey, I worked in the auto business for many years. The basics of E15 is it just got more alcohol in it. Cars designed after a certain point, they read the amount of octane, as it were, or power that's in the gasoline. So the car will adjust to use the stuff. It's not great for the systems of the cars, all the plastics and stuff in a car, though, have been designed to use it. So, yeah, newer cars can handle it. The thing that's stupid about the gasoline is, or E15, it's just not as powerful. So, yes, you're getting cheaper gas, but you're not getting as much performance out of the gas. And finally, environmentally, you're making this stuff out of corn or beans or something, right? And it's the process of making it and its ability to perform are far worse than plain old gasoline. So the nonsense the state wanting clean gasoline through all of its blends and things is kind of thrown out the window because you're running a fuel that's not as good. It's clearly just a response to the fact that they're losing 2 refineries very soon. They're going to have a fuel shortage in the state because the 2 refineries getting shut down.
It's wild, though, if that's the answer to this, what happens when there's so many cars and so many engines that aren't compatible with it? Thanks so much for all that knowledge, Eric. I really appreciate it. Wow, a whole bunch of people are calling in about E15. Love it. Let's go to Tom in San Jose. Tom, hello.
Hey, he beat me to the punch. I had a 2010 Suburban 75th Anniversary Diamond Edition, the big, huge flagship of GM. They're Suburban. They're Chevy, I guess. And, we tried it. And I can vouch for it. What you save at the pump, you're going to spend going back to the pump. And the performance is it's noticeably, I'm not going to say significantly, but it's noticeably a lot less as far as the performance goes. So, yeah, I can't believe they're trying this again. But like you said, you guys nailed it. Thanks
so
for
you would noticeably get less distance on your tank if you filled it with the E15.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. You're going to go back to the pump more. And the like I said, it's not a significant difference in the power. But, I mean, I'm kind of a car guy, not super duper car guy, but I can see it. I grew up working on my own cars and had my own race cars and stuff like that. So you could feel it. And I don't think you need to be at that level of car enthusiast to feel the difference as well as see the difference in how fast you got to go back to the pump.
Well, and if that's the case, I'm going to imagine the average consumer that now has to go to Costco even more to stand in that line to get ethanol, they're going to realize real soon this didn't work out. Thanks so much for the call, Tom. Appreciate it. Let's go to Lawrence in Garden Grove. Lawrence, hello.
Yes, sir. How are you?
Doing great.
I'm calling. We've talked a few times, you and John and I, on different occasions, but this E15 is garbage gas. It's another ploy by new scum to get our older cars off the road, which I'm not going to do. I've been driving the VW 70. It's a 1972 Bug. And when I renewed registration in February, I've been driving it 48 years. And I used to be able to buy gasoline in 1970, the good gas with a lead in it, for 28 cents a gallon for 101 octane gasoline.
Wow.
28 cents a gallon. And they had gas stations with gas wars on every corner. This was in the early 70s. 28 cents a gallon for good gas that actually didn't damage your engine. This alcohol, when it's injected into the engine cylinders near the spark plug, it's actually scrubbing the lubricating properties of your engine oil off the cylinder walls. So you're going to have scuffing of your cylinder walls and the piston rings and more engine damage. This is garbage, totally. I tell people don't put an ounce of it in your car.
Well, thanks so much for the insight, Lawrence, and congratulations. 48 years in that Bug. I love to hear it. Let's go to Susan in Castro Valley. Susan, hello.
Hi.
Hi.
So this is just recycling the old ethanol gas of the early 2000s. We went up to Sacramento and we protested against this because it causes cars to catch on fire. It eats through the tubing and all the little things that feed the gas, and then they catch on fire. You're going to see tons and tons of cars on fire on the freeway again, just like we saw in 2000.
Well, and that's not going to be very good for the environment. Now, is it? Thanks so much for the call, Susan. Appreciate it. It's amazing all the unintended consequences of, trying to get a cleaner, greener fuel. Let's go to Steve in Laguna Hills. Steve, hello.
Hello. Hey, Randy. Listen, you and your wife have done it correctly. I'm going to tell you, I had a Lincoln Continental.
So what does this say? So Seattle?
11 miles per gallon. And now I have a leased Tesla Model Y, $400 all in, always under warranty, and $11 for 190 miles. So 250 miles. I think that's the way to go.
That's pretty darn solid. And wow, $400 lease. That's great. I will say, if you've got a Tesla, you've got access to that network, and charging on road trips is feasible. They get busy, but it's feasible. If you don't have a Tesla and you've got to deal with all the other charging networks and all the apps and all the places that don't have cell reception, it is a nightmare to go on a road trip.
You're right. You're right. All the best.
Thanks so much for the call, Steve. Appreciate it. 800-222-5222 is the telephone number. People are fired up about E15 gasoline, so give us a call. Johnny's on vacation. It's Randy Wang here. Let's go back to your calls on Gavin Newsom allowing E15 to be sold at gas stations. Let's go to Scott in Glendora. Scott, hello.
How's it going? Good afternoon.
Doing great.
So, I called in about 5 months ago, and we were discussing the refinery, one of the refineries in Los Angeles closing, or maybe it was two of them, due to having to the mandate from Newsom to have to create this new fuel. And I told you guys at the time, I'd done some research, and I figured out it was going to be E15 fuel, and that most cars, if they're 2020 and older, can't use it unless, like the previous callers talked about flex fuel cars, which did come out in around 2001, because I was working at Ford at the time. But those cars had to be manually switched over to use one fuel or the other, if I recall. I don't know, maybe the new flex fuel cars, you can driver option, you can choose it. But it's a fuel that's only for a few cars, and it's like the other caller said, it's not good for the environment as far as just, the production of it and the whole thing. It's just useless. It's all just, blowing smoke, basically. It's not going to help anything.
Well, and when the average car in California is over 12 years old, there is going to be somebody that's going to accidentally put this in their car, and disaster is going to be afoot.
For sure.
Thanks so much for the call, Scott. Appreciate it. Let's go to Richard in Long Beach. Richard, hello.
Good afternoon, Randy. Love you and John's show. First-time caller.
Thank you.
You mentioned about the button on the pump, but what about the storage of the new fuel in the ground? Where would that go?
That's a really good point. Is that going to be compatible? Because if the alcohol in that is corrosive, we could have all kinds of infrastructure problems. Have we thought this through?
Correct.
Thanks so much.
That's it, Randy. Love the show.
Thanks.
I love the 5 at 5, too, Randy at 5.
Love it. Thanks so much for the call, Richard. Call us again. Let's go to Tim in Upland. Tim, hello.
Hello. I've been listening to this, and the biggest problem I can see is it'll take a lot of corn to make all this liquor to put into your gasoline. It'll drive the price up of corn and will have a lot of effect on the poor class that eat a lot of corn in their diets.
Well, and not only that, but you think of the over farming that we already do and the damage to the soil when now we're turning, how much land are we going to need to be producing this fuel on a consistent basis? There's a lot of questions that I don't think this state has really answered. Thanks so much for the call, Tim. Appreciate it. Well, that's California for you. We got one more hour to go. It is Randy Wang here on The John Phillips Show. Oh, no, that rhymed.